You know that feeling when everything in your life is finally going well, but instead of relaxing into it, you feel this creeping sense of dread. Like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe you've noticed that when things are peaceful and calm, your body tenses up rather than settles down. Your heart might race when you're lying in bed at night in a quiet house, or you feel an inexplicable anxiety on a Sunday afternoon when nothing is demanding your attention. Perhaps you find yourself almost missing the chaos, or you unconsciously create problems just to have something to fix. If you've ever felt more comfortable in crisis than in calm, more at ease when you're needed than when you're resting, you're not imagining things, and you're definitely not alone in this experience. Some people describe it as feeling like they're constantly bracing for impact, even when they're sitting in a comfortable room with people they love. Others say that silence feels loud, that stillness feels threatening, that peace feels like a trap. You might find yourself staying busy, filling every moment with tasks and noise and movement, because when you stop, that's when the anxiety floods in. Or maybe you've noticed that you're amazing in a crisis, calm, capable, clear-headed, but the moment the emergency passes and everyone else relaxes, you fall apart. This contradiction can be confusing and frustrating, especially when well-meaning people tell you to just relax and enjoy the good times, as if it were that simple. Maybe you've been told you're overthinking, that you're creating problems where there aren't any, or that you need to just be grateful for what you have. And you are grateful, that's not the issue. The issue is that gratitude and peace don't automatically translate into feeling safe, and that disconnect can make you feel like something is fundamentally wrong with you. Tell me honestly, have you experienced this exact thing where peace feels more threatening than chaos? Let me know in the comments. I will read your comment and reply to you. What you're describing is real, it's documented in psychological research, and there are very specific reasons why your system responds this way. In clinical psychology, what you're experiencing is closely related to a state called hypervigilance, which is a heightened state of sensory sensitivity accompanied by an exaggerated intensity of behaviors aimed at detecting threats. It's one of the core symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and complex trauma. But hypervigilance isn't just about being alert or cautious, it's about your entire nervous system being recalibrated to expect danger at any moment. There's also something called allostatic load, which refers to the cumulative burden of chronic stress and life events on your body. Think of it like this: your body has a stress response system that's designed to activate in dangerous situations and then return to baseline when the danger passes. But when you've experienced prolonged periods of unpredictability, instability, childhood trauma, or ongoing stress, your stress response system doesn't just activate and deactivate cleanly. Instead, it gets stuck in a state of chronic activation. Researchers have found that people with histories of developmental trauma, adverse childhood experiences, or even adult experiences of prolonged uncertainty often develop what's called a foreshortened sense of safety or compressed future orientation. Essentially, your brain learned through repeated experience that calm periods don't last, that good things are temporary, and that danger is always lurking just beneath the surface. This learning didn't happen consciously, it happened at the level of your nervous system through a process called implicit memory, which is memory stored in your body and automatic responses rather than in conscious recall. So now, even when you're objectively safe, even when there's no logical reason to feel threatened, your nervous system hasn't received the update. It's still operating on old programming, old survival rules that once kept you protected but now keep you trapped in a cycle of anxiety during the very moments when you should be able to rest and receive the peace you've worked so hard to create. Let's dive deeper into the neuroscience and evolutionary psychology behind this response, because understanding what's happening in your brain and body at a biological level can be incredibly validating and can help you recognize that this isn't a personal failing. From an evolutionary standpoint, our ancestors who survived and passed on their genes were the ones who maintained some level of vigilance even during periods of apparent safety. If you were a human 10,000 years ago living in small hunter-gatherer groups, and you completely relaxed every time things seemed calm, you'd be more vulnerable to predators, attacks from rival groups, or sudden environmental dangers like fires or floods. The humans who survived were the ones with what scientists call a negativity bias, meaning their brains were wired to pay significantly more attention to potential threats than to signs of safety. This is why we remember criticism more vividly than praise, why one negative comment can overshadow 10 positive ones, and why our brains are essentially Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. As neuropsychologist Rick Hansen describes it, this negativity bias was adaptive when threats were immediate and physical, but in modern life it can keep us locked in patterns of anxiety and hypervigilance. Now, here's what happens when you add trauma or chronic stress to this already threat-focused system. Your amygdala, which is an almond-shaped structure deep in your brain responsible for processing fear and triggering emotional responses, becomes hyperactive and hypersensitive. Brain imaging studies using fMRI technology have shown that people with PTSD and complex trauma have amygdalae that light up more intensely and more frequently in response to potential threats, and sometimes even to neutral stimuli that the brain misinterprets as threatening. At the same time, your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for executive function, rational thought, decision-making, and emotional regulation, becomes less active and less able to modulate the fear response. This creates a neurological situation where your fear center is screaming danger while your rational mind's ability to assess the situation accurately and calm things down is significantly compromised. Your hippocampus, which is crucial for processing and consolidating memories and for helping your brain contextualize experiences and distinguish between past and present, can actually shrink in volume in response to chronic stress and prolonged exposure to elevated cortisol levels. Research has shown that individuals with histories of childhood trauma often have smaller hippocampal volumes, which means their brains have a harder time recognizing that the danger has passed, that they're no longer in that unsafe environment, that the present moment is fundamentally different from the past. This is why trauma can feel so timeless, why a smell or a sound can transport you back to a traumatic moment as if it's happening right now rather than years ago. Your autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary bodily functions like heart rate, digestion, and breathing, has two main branches. The sympathetic nervous system, which activates your fight or flight response and pumps stress hormones into your bloodstream, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which activates your rest and digest response and helps your body return to a state of calm. In a healthy, well-regulated system, these two branches work in dynamic balance, ramping up when there's genuine danger and calming down when the threat passes. But when you've experienced chronic or repeated activation of your sympathetic nervous system over months or years, it can become your baseline state. Your body becomes so accustomed to running on stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline that when things calm down and those chemical levels drop, the sudden change itself feels destabilizing, uncomfortable, and even dangerous. It's similar to how someone who's been in a loud concert or construction zone for hours might find sudden silence uncomfortable, disorienting, or even eerie. Your nervous system has adapted to chaos the way eyes adapt to darkness, and when calm arrives, it feels blinding and foreign rather than soothing. There's also a phenomenon called neuroception, a term coined by psychiatrist and researcher Dr. Stephen Porges as part of his polyvagal theory. Neuroception refers to your nervous system's unconscious, automatic ability to detect safety or danger in your environment without any conscious thought or awareness. Unlike perception, which is conscious and deliberate, neuroception happens below your awareness in the primitive parts of your brain and nervous system. Your body is constantly scanning your environment for cues of safety or threat, monitoring things like tone of voice, facial expressions, body language, and environmental factors. When you've been shaped by environments where calm preceded chaos, where peaceful moments were regularly followed by explosions of anger, violence, emotional volatility, or unpredictable punishment, your neuroception learns to associate calm with impending danger. Your system develops what we might call a trauma-informed prediction model where stillness equals the calm before the storm. So even though consciously and rationally you know you're safe, even though you can look around and see that nothing threatening is happening, your unconscious detection system is signaling danger, and that creates this profound and exhausting internal conflict between what you know and what you feel. Now here's what I really need you to hear, and I mean this with absolute sincerity and my whole heart. You are not broken, damaged, defective, or beyond repair. What you're experiencing is not a character flaw, a sign of weakness, or evidence that you're not trying hard enough or not grateful enough. It's evidence of your nervous system's incredible adaptability, resilience, and your survival instinct functioning exactly as it was designed to function in the environment where it was formed. The hypervigilance that exhausts you now that keeps you awake at night, that makes peaceful moments feel uncomfortable, is the exact same mechanism that kept you safe when you genuinely needed that protection. The ability to sense danger before it fully manifests, to read subtle shifts in energy and mood, to pick up on micro-expressions and changes in tone that others miss entirely, to anticipate problems before they materialize, these skills likely protected you or people you cared about during critical times in your life. Many people who experience this pattern grew up in environments where they had to be the stable one, the emotional regulator for adults who should have been regulating for them, the one who managed everyone else's emotions and kept the peace, the one who prevented disasters by staying 2 steps ahead and reading the room perfectly. This is often connected to what psychologists call parentification, where children take on adult emotional or practical responsibilities far too early. That kind of early responsibility, that pressure to be hyper, aware, and constantly vigilant creates a nervous system that believes it must always be on guard. That relaxation is a dangerous luxury it cannot afford. That letting down your guard means someone will get hurt. If you were the one who had to track whether a parent was in a good mood or about to explode, whether it was safe to speak or better to disappear, whether the tension in the house meant violence was coming or things might be okay, then your nervous system learned that your survival and the survival of others depended on perfect awareness. That's not a lesson you can just unlearn by being told you're safe now. But here's the beautiful and hopeful truth that I want you to hold on to. Just as your brain and nervous system learned these protective patterns through experience, they can learn new patterns through new experiences. Neuroplasticity, which is your brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout your entire life, means you're not permanently stuck with this wiring. Your brain is not fixed or static, it's dynamic and changeable. Through consistent experiences of genuine safety, through therapeutic practices that work directly with your nervous system rather than just trying to think your way out of these patterns, through relationships with people who prove over and over through their actions and consistency that calm doesn't precede chaos in this context, you can actually retrain your nervous system to recognize and receive safety. This process takes time and patience and compassion for yourself, but it's absolutely possible. Somatic therapies, which work directly with body sensations and the nervous system rather than just talking about experiences intellectually, can be particularly powerful for this kind of healing. Modalities like EMDR, which uses bilateral stimulation to help your brain reprocess traumatic memories, somatic experiencing, which helps your body complete interrupted stress cycles and discharge trapped survival energy, trauma-informed yoga, which teaches you to befriend your body and its sensations rather than override or ignore them. And even practices like trauma-sensitive mindfulness can help you build a new relationship with safety. The sensitivity you carry, your ability to read rooms and people with remarkable accuracy, the way you notice subtle dynamics and undercurrents that others completely miss, these aren't just symptoms of trauma or anxiety, they're also profound gifts that many healers, therapists, counselors, artists, writers, advocates, and deeply empathetic people share and use to make meaningful contributions to the world. You've become what some researchers and clinicians call a highly attuned person or someone with heightened sensitivity, and while that sensitivity was born from survival, it can be channeled into connection, creativity, and compassion. Your journey isn't about eliminating your sensitivity, becoming someone who never feels anxious, or turning yourself into someone who's carefree and unbothered. It's about building a new, kinder relationship with your nervous system, one where you can acknowledge the fear and the vigilance, while also gradually learning to recognize and trust safety when it's genuinely present. It's about expanding your window of tolerance so that you can experience peace without your system immediately interpreting it as danger. You're not too much, you're not beyond help, and you're not sentenced to a lifetime of feeling unsafe, even when you're safe. You're someone whose system learned to survive in conditions that required constant vigilance and perfect awareness, and now you're embarking on the much harder and braver task of learning to truly live, to rest, to receive care and peace, and that is one of the most courageous things a human being can do. If this resonated with you, if you felt seen or understood in this discussion, and if you'd like to be part of a community that recognizes that healing isn't linear, that your struggles are valid, and that you deserve compassion rather than judgment, I'd love for you to subscribe and join us on this journey toward understanding ourselves with more kindness and less shame.